Awesome. So we together are going to turn this photo up here, this crappy, dark looking Amazon photo, into a 10 out of 10 Amazon product photo that is going to double the conversion rate of your listing and therefore double the sales that you get on Amazon. Because you can see something like this. A lot of people launch products with very, very average looking photos. And in fact, we went ahead and we bought this ball to see exactly what it is like in person, and you can see it's actually a much higher quality ball than it looks like in the photo. The photo looks dark, the photo looks dreary. You can see there's all crease marks and lines all over it, which is not a bad thing, and they're selling very well because of their brand name. But a lot of people are launching their products, their first products, with photos similar to this, or even they're paying thousands of dollars for photos that are supposed to look really good, and they're getting them back and they don't look as amazing as possible, and it's going to be hurting your sales because images are one of the most important things with your Amazon listing. It's probably going to increase your conversion rate almost higher than anything else. So if we're going to go and we're going to search something that's in really high demand, like turmeric curcumin powder, you can see that none of these have the shadowy, crappy photos that this one does here actually, but they've only got 4 reviews. They're brand new and they're not going to last with those photos. You can see everyone has this sort of rendered look to their photos, something that can be either very expensive to buy, or even like myself, I cannot find anyone who can consistently give me these high quality photos for a reasonable price that's not beyond $2,000, $3,000. So I'm going to show you how I do my own photos. And I work with a graphic designer to show them exactly what I want in my photos. And so you can either copy this step by step if you have Photoshop. If you don't, you can get it for about $10 a month, I believe, and then you can delete it once you do your photos and copy along. Or you can give this to your graphic designer that you find on Fiverr or that you pay a little bit extra money for, so they know exactly what we're looking for. Because in the world of Amazon, you really need to be not a jack of all trades, but an expert in all trades. It's a very competitive marketplace. But if you can get ahead, if you can use these little tips and tricks, especially when it comes from something so important like product photography, you can get way ahead of everybody else out there in the game. And you can combine, when you have, oh, I'm really good at marketing, there's a lot of people who are really good at marketing. And you have, oh, I'm really good at Photoshop. There's a lot of people who are really good at Photoshop. But when you can pull these Venn diagrams together and you can be good at marketing and you can be good at Photoshop, you're joining like the 0.1% of people now. And not only will this help you with your Amazon products, but you can now go and do other things to make money. Like you can go and do product photography for other Amazon sellers and make a side income, a cash income that you can then invest into your product. So this is a very, very valuable skill. So I'm excited to show you. So without further ado, let's jump back to our soccer ball. So this is the one we're going to work on together. This is the one that I bought to show you exactly how we can improve these images. And if this was your product, how I would improve it for you. Because a lot of people spend money on the actual photography, getting the camera, getting the lighting, and it doesn't actually matter because we redid this ball right here. We didn't take any new photos with this ball. You can see they've got 3 photos, and even this one, look how shiny that is. It's pretty crazy. The only reason this is selling so well is because it is a brand ball with a lot of big audience behind it already. And we're going to redo Wilson's ball in Photoshop together. So all I've done is I've copied and pasted that ball in. And if you guys want to practice along with me, which could be actually a fun idea, come over, click on this image first, and then right click on it to copy it. And then you can paste it into your Photoshop pretty quickly. So let's crack open Photoshop again. And I'm going to show you the finished product because this is what we're going to turn it into. And if you don't like the look of this product, you can get out of the video and not have to follow along to be like, oh, I don't like that. Because a word of warning, I'm not a Photoshop expert in any sense of the word. I'm an entrepreneur and marketer first, and I enjoy playing with Photoshop. But if you see me do something that's not 100% the most quickest way to do it's because I don't know, but I get the result that I want in the end anyway. So this is the finished product. You can see I've used the exact same photo. I haven't added anything. I haven't added any new photography, but I've turned this ball from a dark, shadowy, lopsided, asymmetrical mess into something that is well-rounded. It's a much brighter. It may be a little too bright looking at it now, but we can turn that down pretty quickly. You can see the logos straight and center. Everything is much more legible. So we're going to turn this, which if you've just got your product and you want to do photos yourself, this is what your photo is probably going to look like. And we're going to make it into this. I'm going to show you all the tools that we're going to need to do that. So settle in. This will be about 10 to 20 minutes, which is pretty quick when you consider this costs thousands and thousands of dollars to get it done professionally. So let's go ahead and close that and start with our soccer ball. So here is our ball. And the first thing, I've actually got a list of things we want to do to it. The first thing that is really important in photography is making things symmetrical. And a lot of people, especially in the ball industry, if you search something like gym ball or exercise ball, I think it's called in the US, maybe it is called gym ball or exercise ball, you can see that this is a perfect circle and it's very, very symmetrical. Where if you scroll down and you start to see like this is a little bit shiny, but it still is perfectly symmetrical. You'll start to see the further down in the listings you go, the worse the photography actually gets. And actually, I think it was a gym ball cover. Gym ball. So you can see this one here, perfectly symmetrical, nice shading. You can see the fabric really shining through. This is an amazing photo. And you can see this is the exact same product, but it's dark and shadowy. It's not exactly a circle. It's actually a little bit bowed in there. You can see it's more of a circle. And the difference between something like this and this is a lot of money in sales. You can see this is also perfectly round. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to make our ball perfectly round. And we're also going to make it symmetrical. So the best way to make it symmetrical is we're going to go ahead and basically just cut it in half and then reverse it. So, sorry, I should talk you through these tools. We're going to hit our rectangular marquee tool. And once again, if you have downloaded Photoshop on a free trial or a month, you can copy along. Or you can timestamp this video and send it to your graphic designer to have them see what I'm talking about, to add that marketing part to the mix that the most graphic designers don't have. So let's do this together. We're going to cut it right there. And it's not going to be perfect because it's not perfect already. So it's not going to quite go through the middle, but people aren't going to actually notice. It's going to look a lot better than it already does. So I'm going to actually duplicate that layer. Hold on, let me unselect. I'm going to duplicate that layer so we have the before and after. And this is the one we're going to work on. So let's reselect that symmetrical half right there. And I'm going to cut it and I'm going to paste it. And you can see it paste right back on because I pushed Command-Shift-V and not just Command-V to get it back in place. And so now what I want to do is I want to duplicate it. So I'm going to push Command-J and I want to flip it. So I'm going to come up here. I've got a sticker on my screen, so I got to look under it. Down to Edit, down to Transform, and down to Flip Horizontal because that's what we want. We want it horizontally flipped over to this side. And what we're going to do is you can see we can start to drag it into place. And you can see the logo is obviously going to be messed up because it's now a horizontal flip of the original logo. But you can see we're going to move it in to where the hexagons, the hexagon 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the pentagons are lined up, and the stitching is sort of lined up. And you can see it's not a perfect match because it is a half of a ball and half of a ball. So things like this, it should be up a little bit high, but we can fix that in a second. So I'm just going to leave it there like that. And I'm going to delete the underlayer of the original ball so that you can see that it's now almost a perfect circle. There's one more thing I want to apply to that. Bump it over a little bit. I'm just using my left and right arrows. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight these two and convert the smart object and then rasterize the layer just to make it one ball. Now we can see it's one ball here. So this is what it used to look like. This is now what it looks like. We've gone from the unsymmetrical ball, you can see these are offline, into the symmetrical ball. Now we also want to make sure it's perfectly round. So what we're going to do is we're going to get an ellipse tool or a circle tool basically. I'm going to hold shift and I'm going to pull it to where I want it on the screen. So what I want to do in product photography, you want to make sure that you're lining up your edges. So you want to make full use of this space. So I'm just going to confirm that at the moment, and then we're going to move it into place. So the top edge we want just under up here. You can see we want a little bit of white space. Now I'm going to Command T this. I'm holding shift to keep it a perfect circle. As I pull this left side into place, Now the right side's got some room, so we can keep pulling this side here. The bottom's got a little bit of room. So you can see, we're going to apply that transformation. That is the perfect circle. It's a little bit, maybe a little bit big. That's pretty good. And so we want our soccer ball. I'm going to make it a tiny bit smaller than that, actually, just to make sure it fits in the screen. There we go. So now you can see there's white space on each side, but we're really using all that white space, which is very, very important. So I'm going to bring this below my soccer ball here, and I'm actually going to make this red for us to be able to see which one our soccer ball is. And you can see that it's actually bigger than our... Oh, we actually have to remove the white space first. So if you want to remove white space in any of your photos, this is the easiest way to do it. Magic Wand tool here. Set your tolerance up here. So how much tolerance does it have? So if you have really high tolerance, like 150 tolerance, you can accidentally pick up, you can see in here, is a similar color to the white up here, so it starts to bleed in. So you want to find your tolerance level that is right for you, so just come and play with it basically. And you can see once you get the right tolerance level, it won't bleed into your product. So we're going to go a little bit less because we're selecting just white, so it's pretty easy to have a low tolerance and have it pick up what we want it to pick up. I'm also going to get rid of that background and that ball so we can see what's on our actual screen here. So I'm just going to delete that. You can see it goes to the black and white checks because that's the background of Photoshop, and delete it down there as well. Okay, so you can see there is our ball, and now I'm just going to bump it back into the right place. And you can see this is the perfect circle, and it's sort of really close to it at the moment because we split it and made it symmetrical already. So all we want to do is basically to make this ball perfectly round. I'm going to actually just, this is a little bit different to I did the original one because I didn't split it first. I'm just going to pull this circle a little bit bigger. And then you can actually highlight them both and you can align them in the center of the shape. So this is horizontal center and then vertical center. So now I can see that black shines through equally on all sides. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to blur that a little bit. So filter, blur, Gaussian blur. We're going to make it a smart object, which is fine. And we're just going to blur it. So it's going to give it a little bit of a, you can see a little bit of a shadow around it. But still keep it in its perfect circle. And the more you blur, obviously, the more shadow it's going to get. But obviously, we want to keep the circle shape to it and just make it pop off the screen a little bit. So we're going to bring... You can do a little bit less, about 4, back where it started. So you can see if I take that away, it just pops off the screen a little bit. And it's still a dark ball, and we're going to make it a nice bright ball. So let's move on to the next thing. So we've got our symmetrical, we've got it being perfectly round, which helped by doing the symmetry. Now we want to adjust the color and remove the scuffs. You can see there's scuffing down here. And if you go back to the turmeric pages or you go back to any big competitive niche that has a big budget, they don't have the product imperfections on it. And you don't, this looks like size 8 when it's size 3 because we flipped it. You don't want to have imperfections on your product photo. Everyone will expect your product not to be 100% perfect like the photo. You don't want to do it over realistic because then you're going to get bad reviews because the photo might misrepresent it. But for something for like a soccer ball, people expect there to be scuffs and things on it. So we're okay to clean those up and have it shining in the product photo. So the first thing, and this is probably one of the most powerful tools we can actually use, is camera raw filter. So we go filter, camera raw filter, and we really want to make this pop. So we only have black and white. So if you have colors, this is a good way to bring out brighter colors. But because we only have black and white, we really want to just make the whites a lot brighter and stand out so it doesn't look so dull and shadowy like someone just took a photo with an old camera on it, with a flash on and everything. You can see this here. And we want to make our darks nice and dark. So overall, we want to bring up the exposure. And you can see these sliders are just going to let you change the photo so radically. It's really, really cool. So I'm just going to bring it up, not too much, but just a little bit of brightness there, maybe to 0.45. Contrast is going to make it a little bit more grainy or less grainy. Oh, sorry, no, that is clarity. So let's just reset that. Contrast. Clarity up here is going to make it grainy or non-grainy. And actually, I normally go for more texture in a lot of my product photos, but for this one, we actually want it to be a little bit smoother. So I'm going to bring that clarity down. And it's just going to blur the imperfections into itself. Highlights we can bring out a little bit to bring the whites up. Shadows you can just slide these back and forwards and see what they do. Once again, I'm definitely not an expert here, but you can just see what looks good and what looks bad by dragging them up and down. Bring out the whites. That's really what we want to do. You can see it's obviously removes the stitching if we go too high, and it's really dull if we go too low. So you just find that balance in here, and you can play with this. Like, these are your photos. These are one of the most important aspects of your item, and if you're not spending time on it, well, then you should be, because you'd be wasting time elsewhere if you're not improving your photos, which is one of the most important things you can do. So I'm just going to leave that up there. Blacks, now you can bring these down or up, and you can see when I bring them down, it brings the black into the white, but we're going to fix that manually as well. So I think actually what we're going to do is we're going to leave blacks and manually adjust those blacks, because there's less blacks in that photo. Clarity we've already done. Now vibrance, you can see, brings color into it, where we don't want color because we're black and white, and any color is going to be looking like it's not right. That looks pretty good for me to start, and we can adjust it as we go. It may be a little bit oversaturated like I've done the first one, but we can always adjust that. And I'm just going to see the difference between the ball. I'm just Command Zing or Command Zing, and you can see it goes back and forward between what it was and what it does. And I do think it's probably a little too saturated, but that's okay for now. We can also come back and fix that. So what is next is the scuffs. Now this is a really cool tool, and I'm going to zoom on some of these scuffs down here that you can see. And a really easy way to fix them is to go to your spot healing brush, and then you can make it a little bit bigger if you want. And basically you can see this scuff, this line across here. If I drag that across, didn't work perfectly at all. That was a big reveal that went bad. You can see maybe I have to blot it out a little bit. Do it small bit by small bit. Just buff it out. Unfortunately, there's no big reveal here. You can see that that line has gone. It just automatically takes the images around it, and you can see up here as well. Okay, maybe my brush might be a little bit big for this. This is supposed to be the exciting one where you can see the before and after really quickly. I'm just going to brush it out, buff it out like that, and just remove these scuffs. And this is going to work really well if you have bigger scuffs on whatever your product is, or you have more colors or a big scratch on it or something like that. You can take the scratch out using this tool. And the other way you can actually do it is, which one is it? This one here. Clone stamp tool, where I can hold down the option key, and basically I'll show you somewhere very obvious. What can I show you here? I'll show you taking out the number 8. So I've got Alt or Option, and I click, and that basically sets what it's going to copy. And then I come over here, and it basically, you can see where the plus is. It's pulling that data into the actual healing brush. So if you were to do it on a scratch, for example, which we're sort of out of scratches, but we can pretend that this line here, the stitching, is a scratch. I'm going to pop that up. You can click up here, and then you can go over the stitching, and of course you'd want a color more close to the one that's in there, and you can actually remove it. Now you can see you wanna do this properly and really focus on the scratch and matching the colors, and you probably want to go for a bigger brush because the colors are so different in here. But it's a really good way to get rid of scratches, as well as your spot healing tool. Now I think we're pretty good, because there's not going to be many people zooming too close into our image. And it looks like most of the buffs are out. Now we can focus on the big one, is actually replacing the logo now, because it's not looking good. It is, however, if we go back to our original image, which you can pop at the top, you can see this is really slanted and not symmetrical. And as is already symmetrical, because like we fixed the ball, it's going straight across the screen. So that's a big plus. I'm gonna hack into my you know what, we can do it together again. So I'm gonna open Chrome, and I'm gonna find that Wilson logo. So Wilson logo, go to images, and this is a good way. There's our logo right there. I just want to see if it's up a bit. You can see there's a lot in red, but obviously ours is in black. We've got that little R there. Here's one that looks like it's a PNG already, so I'm going to copy that. Copy image. bring it back into our Photoshop. And let me just throw that in, Command V. Oh, and it's not, okay, so it's not a PNG. We've got the dots on there, which we don't want, which I think you can save it to your desktop, but we're just gonna go ahead and use the white background. It'll be, well, it's not a white background either. Let's see if this works. Perfect, so this one does not copy the background. We're gonna make it the size that we want it, which the size you want it is probably the size that's on the actual product, or if you want a little bit bigger to show off, as long as you're not misrepresenting your products in a harmful way that's going to come back and not be good for the consumer or good for you as a seller long term. We want to place it pretty close to where the original is placed. So that loop there, we're just going to go and see. We've pretty much got that there. And it's going to be straight across and symmetrical to start. Actually going to make ours a little bit smaller than it actually is because I don't like it too big. Put that loop on there here. And now you can see on the original bowl, it has an outline. So a good way to get an outline is you double click on the layer, you go to stroke up here. I'm going to move this across so we can see, and I've already got it set from when I did it the first time. You want to find the perfect color. So click on the color that you want. You can see the eyedropper tool pulls the color in here. And then you can mess with your size of the stroke here. And obviously you just want to match it up with what is accurate. And you can see the cool thing about this is it's not a photo now. It's literally like 100% perfect, and it's going to be too perfect. I'm going to show you how we'll fix that once we just bump it into the right place. How you fix too perfect is we come and make it a little bit of, I don't know how to say this, you create an opacity to it. So it looks a little bit faded, like it's plausible that it is a photo without it just being too renderized or too computerized, so people are like, okay, well, what does the actual product look like? And you can slide that up and down. One thing we need to do is we need to remove the logo behind it. So there's a few ways you can do this. You can use the two tools that I showed you already, but because it's such a big logo, I think one of the easiest ways is going to be just bringing a box. I'm just pulling this box to the point where we need it. Right here, I'm going to pull this under our original logo because it's going to go on top of the actual ball. And we're going to create a gradient. So once again, double click, a gradient overlay, and you can see already it's starting to blend in. But what we want to do is we want to make sure it's a linear gradient that goes with the ball. So this way is fine. Then you want to change the colors. So this color is on the right hand side. So what we want to do is we want to match up the right hand side with the right hand side. You can see that blends in. And then this one over here, double click on that. You want to match this up with the left hand side. So we can come in and click that up here, and you can see now it's the perfect gradient because it's not one solid color, because if you had white the whole way across, it's going to stand out on one side. So you want to match each side to what is on the ball. And then because we have a symmetrical ball, we can actually just Command J that, and then we can Command T to flip it. I'm holding Shift to keep it in place. And then we can pull it over this side as well. And you can see it's not perfect. And don't ask me why, but what we're going to do, it looks like the gradient didn't actually flip with the Command T. So we're just going to flip it by reversing it or unreversing it here. You can see what we did there. And now it's going to match the colors pretty perfect. It's actually a little bit off there, which you couldn't see over this side because it was behind the W. But we can actually just come in. We can rasterize that, so we can actually remove with an razor tool. Look at this, we're going through all the tools. Imperfect Photoshop, that's what we're doing over here. I'm just going to remove that because it's not blocking out any of the logo. Way down there, it actually needs to be brought down to block out this little bit of logo that is showing. And you can see now it's popping up, so I'm just going to stretch it out to make sure we're hitting all sides. There we go. So now the logo is right there in the middle of the ball. And let's go back and compare it to the original. It's always good. You can see there in the middle of the ball, but now it's straight on. It's a little bit too overdone. And once again, this is just a tutorial, so you can fade it a little bit more. You can see the more you fade it, the more worn it looks, but also you may want to give a little bit of angle or curve or skew to it, which we won't go too much into detail on that, but spend some time on this, or get your tell your designer or your graphic artist to make it look a little bit more realistic, because you don't want to overdo it, but I'd prefer to overdo it than underdo it. This looks terrible compared to what we've got at the moment. Now, next thing we want to do is you can see the size and weight. So this is the original up here. You can see it's sort of faded out, sort of hard to see, where what I've done in the finished one, you can see it's right there, it's popping, it's very easy to see, and we're going to do this roughly, but it's a cool tool to actually use, and we need the non-symmetrical ball here to copy what is already there. So you can rewrite this and very much just paste it over, but because it's all circular and slanted in a certain font, what we're going to do is we're going to use that magic wand tool, and we're going to select. We're going to get on the right layer. If you're ever having trouble, make sure you're always on the right layer. Get our magic wand tool back. And we're going to select, once again, we're going to up the tolerance. Now, remember what tolerance is. It just means that we're grabbing the right color. So that's not bad. And this doesn't have to be perfect. If it's your main image on your main product, make it perfect. Spend that extra hour, 2 hours, 3 days, whatever it takes you to make that perfect, because you're going to see a massive jump in your conversion rate. You can see we're just selecting this white here. The 3 gets selected pretty perfectly. I'm holding shift, by the way, to make sure all these selections get selected on top of each other, just like that. And it looks pretty good. Nothing really to fix there. And I'm just going to push Command C to copy it, and then Command Shift V to paste it in place. And you can see if I remove it, you can't really see it because it's right on top of the ball, but you can see here when I remove the ball we copied it from, it goes right into place. So now I'm going to bring this down on top of our ball again. Where's our ball? Down here. The thing we got to realize is we got to remove the back, the image of the back, or the, excuse me, I don't know what I'm saying. We got to remove this thing right here, this thing that's not even English anymore. It's got to go so that the real thing can go on top of it, and then we're going to improve it. So this is another easy square to do because it's just black, and there's going to be something over the top. So that's an easy one to do. We don't have to gradient it in because it's all black. And then we're going to bring it down on top of the ball, and we're going to show our sizes label. I don't know why I'm struggling to name this thing. Now, we can come out again so we can see what we're doing. And we're going to go into the gradient overlay again. So, because you can see it's got a silvery color to it, but we want to have a little bit of shine to it. So we're going to go gradient overlay. And now you can see it's way too white and bright. So what we want to do is we want to make sure it's linear. I can go downwards linear this time too. So it's one color up here, one color down here. And we want to make the first color. I always go to a color. So this is the second color. This is the, I want to do it a nice silver, which is just gray really. So you can see down here. And then this one up here, we want to do not so bright of a white, but something that's brighter than the top, so you can see it has that sheen sort of to it. So we've got this gray in here. Looks to be pretty good. And you can, once again, Command T that and adjust the placement or the size or whatever it is that you want to do to that. Now let's compare that once again to the original. It's in the same spot. It's just a lot brighter and easier to see, easier to read, and looks more professional. So that's the logo and the size done. Now shadows and lighting is a good one as well. So we're going to go through another tool, this one here, the dodge and the burn tool. So let's start with dodge, and I always have to remind myself which one is which. Once again, not an expert here. And the dodge is the brightener, the burn is the darkener. So we're going to start with burn actually, because it's an easy one to do in here. And you can see what we do. Let's bring that exposure way up so we can see it. You can see how it makes basically dirt on the ball. Now we don't want dirt on the ball in the white, but we do want it over here. I don't personally like this shine. If you like this shine, you can keep it. This looks like someone took it in with a camera flash on. So you can see you can actually buff this out of the ball. Now there's a lot of ways you can do it. This is the easiest way that I find. And you can see even though now it still looks like the camera flash was on the ball, it's a lot more professional. It's actually black where it's supposed to be black. We're still with a little bit of shine to it. And you can just go around and you can see you can go over this because I've got this layer selected. You can go and buff out the stuff that you don't want, or shadow it, and I'll show you how to shadow it to make it look a little bit rounder. I don't know why my shortcuts down there on my Bluetooth keyboard aren't working, but we're just going to come in here, make it a little bit smaller of a brush to actually go over this here. Boom, boom, boom. and have some fun with this. If this is something that you can have fun with, I actually enjoy something therapeutic about Photoshop and photo editing to me, even though I'm not the best at it. I get the results of a marketer, not of a professional graphic designer. And this makes you money. This makes you a lot of money if you spend time on this and learn how to do it perfectly. And I like it because you can listen to podcasts, you can listen to music, you can do whatever you want while you do it. Unlike like video research or editing videos where you have to be listening and you have to be alert. This one you can sort of switch off a little bit once you know the tools, and you can see if we go too far in with this S is not really an S and stuff. But you can come in and fix that yourself if this is your main image, if this is your main product, and if you got the time, which you should if this is the main image and product. So we're just going to buff these flashlights out again. I said flashlights, by the way, everybody. The lights from the flash on the ball. And over this side, just like that. Very easy. Very easy to do, and it just makes the blackness on the ball really, black and not shiny and white and weird like a flash is on. That's before and after there. So let's go back to the after, and then you can do the same on now. If you want, you can look up other tutorials, and they'll show you how to make your ball or whatever it is, your product, look 3D by shading the side of it, and it works. I've done it before. I've spent a lot of time. You can see it's perfect like that, and that's going to show you how to make it real 3D. I'm not going to go into that now. What I'm going to go into is the dodge tool, which is the opposite to the burn, which if we scroll in or zoom in, we can actually take out these dark patches of the ball. So exposure 99. You can see it's just cleaning up those dark patches here by going over them with this white brush. Now let me get it in one so you can see the before and after, because it is sort of subtle. You can see the shadow here. I'm just going to hold this down and buff it. And then when you can go back and forward, you can see it's in there. And you can just keep going just to bring the darkness out of this photography. And once again, you may want the darkness if you're trying to make a more 3D or metallic effect. You want to play with these tools and just find a YouTube tutorial if you have metal in your product, just like how to create metallic effect or how to polish or shine metal in Photoshop, and it'll show you exactly how to use these tools to do that. But I'm just taking this darkness out of the ball, which I really don't like. You can see down here as well. It's just really dark and amateur, and we want to computerize it. We want to renderize it, make it look like a perfect photo. And once again, you can do this as much as you want. Some people like to do it way over the top, and I've seen it way over the top. And some people like to balance it. Some people like to have a more natural look, but the more competitive Amazon's getting, the better you need these photos. So make sure that you have the capacity to do it as you want to do it, as you think is going to be the best way to do it. And you can see what your competitors are doing. What are your successful competitors doing? That's what you're going to have to match in the end, because that's what Amazon like. Whatever they're ranking first, whatever people are actually buying, that is what you should use as what is right and what is wrong. And you can see in the big niches, it's the really rendered, computerized sort of graphics. So, boom, look at that, we're in. You can see it's blurred a little bit down here. Once again, not a big problem. It looks way better than that. Cool. So that's our lighting and our shadows. Now we got our pop border. I call this thing a pop border. That's this thing here. You can see, if you like it, keep it. If you don't like it, remove it. Once again, it's up to you, or test it. Does it help you with sales or does it not? And actually, you can remove the blur on it for a second. See, it's just added a stroke to it, which is almost like a shadow. I think I've blurred it a little too much. So I'm just going to go in here and just really blur, Gaussian blur. Just a small blur on it. And so it's more like a border than an actual, and it just helps look like that circular shape. And then what we want to do is we want to apply a If we come back down here, a little shadow below it. Like I like this sort of shadow. Come and look at what shadows you like. To make this sort of shadows really easy, come back to Photoshop. We need our Eclipse tool again. And this is the color it's going to be. It's going to be black. And basically, you just pull it into the shape you want it. That's about right there. You can see it's already behind the ball, which is perfect. We want to bump it down to below the ball here. Now, if you didn't want to fill this full screen, you can have it more in the center, but I like to have my products as big and full screen as possible. And what we're going to do is we're going to blur it. Now you can see there's some imperfections here, but I'm just trying to show you the tools. You can always go back over this again and again. So don't stress about these small things. It's very easy to come back and fix. This is Photoshop. It's not a painting. Now you can see I'm just blurring this image in here. And what I like to do is, if you blur too much, it just disappears and it looks silly. If you blur not enough, it looks also silly. So we want to find that balance, but also I want to keep it a little bit darker than it should be, because what I'm going to do is just take down that opacity to blend it in a little bit better. And I'm going to stretch it out because it looks a little bit 2D. So I'm just going to stretch it out that way, down there. And you can see we have a shadow, and it's not perfect, but it's a shadow. Now replace that white background back on there, and that shadow is way too strong. And always, for some reason, whenever I upload my photos to Amazon, the shadow always looked 10 times stronger than it did in Photoshop. So I'm going to really tone that shadow down a little bit. And actually, one thing you can do, which I've seen and actually done before, is you can double shadow it. So you get a smaller one and you put that right under the ball, and then the less one outside the ball, and you can bring that one sort of up a little bit. At the moment, it's all a little bit dark for me, so I'm just going to keep that down at about 24, and then bring this one even further down, probably down on about 24 as well. And that's everything. So we have gone from this, I don't know how long that was, probably 20 minutes, into that. And you can see it's not perfect. The pop border I don't love. The shadow's still a little bit dark. It's a little bit overexposed. But round 2 now, that took 20 minutes. So take another 20 minutes to adjust these small things using those tools that I showed you. And this really can be the difference between you getting a 5% conversion rate and a 10% conversion rate. Because I would never buy, apart from me buying this one to do this video, a ball that looked like that wasn't a name brand. If this just said Benji and Benji's ball, Benji soccer ball, I wouldn't buy Benji soccer ball because they can't even do product photography, and you're not going to be able to compete in your market. So make sure that you are using these tools, you're rendering these things properly. Send these to your graphic designer if you're not interested in it. The second thing I want to show you is a second ball. So I've photoshopped, I've taken this this really, really good image, which you can either buy or you can have taken and recreate. You can see that ball looks really amazing. It's not actually the Wilson ball, but you can buy this image. Let me just fix that. And then I put our actual logo and sizing on this, so it looks like our ball. And you can see it's a really nice lifestyle sort of photo. Now you need these as well. And what I've done here is don't settle for second best. Like we've been talking about throwing rocks at your competitors. If someone comes in and they see, wow, looks like a really amazing ball, I guess probably a little too overdone, coming back into that one, but you can always tone it down, and that's the one we did earlier. You can always tone it down, but better be overdone than underdone. And then come back here and look at, don't settle for second best. This is the premium soccer ball for purists. It's like if someone's looking for a soccer ball and they have a really good first image, don't settle for second best in the second image. Or even you can show a crappy looking soccer ball here that's fallen apart, and you'd be like, okay, well, put an X over there, put a tick over here. You're throwing rocks at your competitors. So when someone on Amazon's browsing and they find yours, I'm looking for a soccer ball, I don't want my soccer ball to fall apart. I don't want to settle for second best. I want this really amazing soccer ball that it looks amazing in its photos and tells me that it's the premium ball. So this is a necessary thing if you want to make money long term on Amazon. Otherwise, someone else is going to do this and they're going to kick you out. Someone else with a big budget is going to pay $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 for these images, and you're not going to stand a chance when your product is next to them. So always keep innovating on your images. I hope these tools are helpful. And remember, sending this to your graphic designer so he gets to follow along with me if you don't want to do it yourself.